I don't, as long as they don't have to play Dallas, we're good.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I hereby call this January 9th meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order. This is the first committee meeting of the new year, so I want to take a moment and wish everyone peaceful, prosperous, and happy new year. It's good to see all of your faces here today. We have, well, before we move into the agenda, the consent and the general, we always like to take a moment and recognize our city staff, who are all wonderful. They do a great job for us, led by our city manager, Mr. Lee Garrity. Representing our city attorney's office, we have Ms. Angela Carmen. We also have the representatives from our public safety departments. We have Chief Roundtree who's the chief of the police department, Chief Mayo, the chief of the fire department, and representing our emergency management department is Mr. Mel Sadler. Thank all of you for being here, and we appreciate what the city employees do every day to help our citizens to enjoy a high quality of life. We have a few items on the general agenda. Item G1 is an item considering emergency operations. We have a few items considering taxicab and convenience necessities for a few entities. And there is an item renewing or transferring certificate of public convenience for a horse-drawn carriage. Items on the consent agenda will be unanimously approved unless a member wishes to be pulled for consideration. Members of the committee, I think we have a need to pull item G3. C3, thank you. If there is no items that need to be pulled, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve the balance.
Second.
So the balance has been motioned and properly seconded with the exception of item C3. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The consent agenda is approved unanimously. Item C3, please.
Item C3, Circus Animal Survey Information.
Members of the committee, as you know, we have reviewed this item extensively. We were approached from a few people who came to us and asked that we take a look at this item. It came to us for a number of committee sessions. We then decided to sort of follow the democratic process, put it to the people, and go to a survey. I think given us the results of that survey, it's going to be our assistant city manager, Mr. Greg Turner. Mr. Turner, if you can just sort of give us a general synopsis of how the surveys came back in reference to the banning or not banning of circus animals here in the city.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. As you indicated, the committee asked for staff to go out and survey the citizens of Winston-Salem to get a feeling for what their position was relative to this issue. There was an online survey prepared that was sent out or that was used to gather this information. Based upon the results of that survey, 56% of the respondents felt that the city should not ban the use of circus animals or circus animal acts in the city. They're happy to answer any questions you have. There is an excerpt of the survey in your package.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. And from what I understand, members of the committee, you have seen the details. There is also an independent analysis that's included in our packet for our review. And I think the conclusion of the analysis sort of came back and said that any such ban would result in legal implications because the same standard couldn't be held for the Dixie Classic Fair as it would be held for the banning of circus animal. And Madam Attorney, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the analysis sort of indicated that it might be a violation of the Equal Protection Clause.
There is that concern because in essence you would be banning the private sector circuses from having wild animals while having them potentially at the city fair. So that does raise that issue.
Are there any questions at this time for Attorney Carmen or Mr. Turner on this issue? Mr. Larson.
When was the last time we had a circus in Winston-Salem? It's been a while, hasn't it? Circus, yeah. Two protests, yeah. And within the framework that we're currently operating, what precautions as far as the care of the animals do we currently take? Do we have veterinary inspections or anything that goes on within the parameters of animals, whether it be at the fairgrounds or at the circus that comes to town? Do we provide any inspection services on treatment or care or appearance or?
We'll have to get your report. I'm not aware of.
Yeah. Okay. I was curious. I mean, one of the things that I was fascinated by was the regulatory aspects of, I guess, Milwaukee, that has a very proactive animal care program to make sure that animals that are within the parameters of the city are being well taken care of. I think you know, human relationships to animals is a reflection on our own humanity, and clearly how we treat animals around us. But on the other hand, they are also a critical part of our lives, and to start excluding them becomes also, I think, a little question that whether it be zoos, petting zoos, fairs, circuses, what have you. I think the treatment of the animals is of my primary concern, and how we engage them and our responsibilities for their care, if they're going to be put under our stewardship, how we accept that responsibility. So I would appreciate maybe some further elaboration on what possible role the city might have, regardless of whether it's a circus or a fair or petting zoos or whatever that we have. What kind of precautions do we have, ability do we have to ensure the proper treatment of those animals?
Councilmember McIntosh.
I don't want to trivialize this, but the issue doesn't seem to have a lot of mind share amongst the citizens of Winston-Salem. With the exception of 2 emails that I got, all the emails that I got were from citizens from outside the city of Winston-Salem. And the 2 that I got from Winston, one was pro and one was con. It is not a situation that we actually run into all that often. We don't have circuses here that have wild animals to any great degree. But I think in a broader sense, we're in an age where, as Mr. Larson said, that, I think people are re-evaluating their interaction with wild animals. SeaWorld just said that they're going to stop with killer whales. To me, that's sort of emblematic of where the public is going. But I don't want to jump out and do this if it's not specifically an issue that we are dealing with here in Winston-Salem. So my thought process is to follow the lead of what the survey said and to go with what the majority of the respondents said in this case.
Members of the committee, I think we'll all agree that we all thought this was something worth evaluating and taking a look into, and I think we've done our due diligence on that. What I try not to do is think that I know more than the people who I represent. What's the pleasure of the committee at this time?
If you don't mind, I just wanted to speak a second to one of
Mr.
Mr. Larson's
McIntosh.
comments. One of the things that we discussed during this process was, is there any type of accreditation offered in the industry so that we could, if a circus was planning to come here, would we have any basis to evaluate them on their, on the scale of are they good people or bad people as far as how they treat animals, and there isn't. So we investigated quite a few of those options about how do we judge potential acts that come in, and there's not a good metric really that's out there, and the fact that we're not presented with that from a practical standpoint, so staff doesn't really deal with it.
So there's no action to be taken.
Well, that depends on the pleasure of the committee. So my question on the floor is, what is the pleasure of the committee? We could, move to a vote. We could actually hold this item in committee. We could take no action and sort of keep our eye on it as we move forward with other circus acts. But it's up to you guys what we want to do.
I'm not in favor of a ban.
Before we do that, we haven't heard from our Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
I was going to say the information I received came from the folks most interested in it. It was people from out of town, the same thing you said. Very few people from Winston commented about this particular subject. And I feel that when you take an action that puts it into some type of policy, we need to have more of the taxpayers who are actually paying the taxes and the people who live in the city to hear more from them if we're going to do something.
And as you saw, we did the surveys, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, and I believe 56% of the people came back and said they were not in favor of a ban of circus animals. So it sounds to me like the pleasure of the committee is to take no action. And if I haven't heard that correctly, please articulate that now.
I agree.
So we will hold this item in committee and not take action at this time. Item G1, please. Yes, ma'am. We have Martha Cecil, who has signed up to speak. I assumed you wanted to speak after the meeting, but it's about this issue. So, members of the committee, is it okay to maybe 2 or 3 minutes and allow her to have an opportunity to speak? Ms. Cecil, please. Forgive me for not calling on you earlier.
That's all right. I'm sorry I interrupted. I wish I could remember everything that everybody said, but there are 2 circuses that have been here, Circus Pages, I think.
Oh, if you give your name and address for the record, please.
I'm sorry, Martha Cecil, 2026 Creekwood Avenue, Greensboro. And Happy New Year to each of you.
Happy New Year.
Too. I wish I could remember some, though there are two circuses that have been here, and we've protested both of them. And you, sir, happened to mention, have we made preparation for how animals are taken care of? Has there anything been said? I also add, has there been any preparation for public safety? There have been many incidences of wild animals going on a rampage, escaping, killing people or the trainer, or running in the public and doing damage to property. Many instances all over the country. And we've expressed that before. And so out of those things, to me, it is very important. And I don't remember, someone said something over there, but I'll have to address that later. Every new year brings resolutions, new ideas, actions to improvements, both personally and officially. Here we are expressing rational reasons to ban wild animals in Winston-Salem. This is a fast-growing cause all over the world. As you already know, there are many cities, states, and countries who have banned wild animals. I do believe that Winston-Salem is a progressive city and knows the progression of other cities. So as the public opens their eyes, which includes Winston-Salem too, it sounds like it's about 50-50, opens their eyes knowing the cause has been represented and presented by us, will surely wonder why Winston-Salem isn't on that growing list of banning wild animal circuses, not behind or standing still. By taking this stand, you, like the other cities who banned wild animal circuses, will also be educating the public by acting in their best interest. And just to note, we are going to schools now and reading elementary school books to children. We're going to go all over, as many of us as I can, to speak and educate people in school systems and the teachers. And later on, we're going to address concerns. One of the things we're going to address concerns of, mainly all those that y'all talked about, but one specific one that I remember now is ways to solve the concerns about. One time something was mentioned about low-income families being able to only go to circuses because they're cheap and can't go to the zoo. And so we look forward to addressing that issue and any other and many as we can to help move people both spiritually, like you said, humanity, with everything involved. And I ask you to consider this and please keep us in motion.
Ms. Cecil, I will first of all say, again, Happy New Year. Thank you for bringing this cause to our attention. I will say I believe, personally, it is a noble cause, but I think we held this item in committee. I don't think we balled it up and threw it in the trash can, but we just didn't hear the groundswell of support from proponents of this particular idea. This is something that we might can visit later on in the future, but at this time, it doesn't look like there is an appetite to move forward at this time. That doesn't mean in the future, or it's indefinite, but it's been held in committee until further consideration.
Okay. Did you say that it was 56%?
Yes, ma'am.
Against? Well, so that's really
50, well, it's almost 57. It's 56.8, I believe.
That's basically 50-50.
Yes, ma'am.
So you do have educated people. Okay.
Thank you for your consideration.
Any other questions?
Any questions?
No,
Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
I'll make a comment. I think it's the point that you brought up about going into the schools to work with the children, and I think that will be good because then you will be educating them at an early age how we treat animals, because sometimes children see adults do things and they follow. So, and also children, when you work with them, they're the best news carriers at home to make a change. So I think that's a good point in educating folks. And then talk about you said the children, the disadvantaged families. Tell me again, what did you say you were going to do?
Well, there are options to be done to help everybody be able to know and learn and find out and see wild animals. And that's what we want to address, because that seems to be a big concern from what I understand.
That's very good, too.
Yes.
And what I can see you and the people who are working with you, you can be just like watch over what's going on. And if something becomes different than what we have said, this committee is open for you to come back.
Okay. And don't forget about the public safety.
Yes.
That's a big thing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cecil.
Thank you.
Item G1, please.
Item G1, consideration of items regarding emergency operations. Winston-Salem Forsyth County Emergency Operation Plan. B, resolution authorizing the City of Winston-Salem to apply for a fiscal year 2016 program to prepare communities for complex coordinated terrorist attacks, Department of Homeland Security grant.
Giving us the report on this issue is our Director of Emergency Management, Mr. Mills Sattler. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. There have been some recent inquiries and concerns about the emergency operations plan for the city and the county. And we thought it'd be appropriate so we to bring it and kind of refresh everybody's memory in respect to the plan. And this also directly relates to the second part of this item. Now, just a quick reminder, emergency management, for those who don't know, is combined efforts of local, state, and federal governments to protect citizens from the effects of man-made and natural disasters. Oh, excuse me. And in doing that, we have three levels of government who work directly with emergency management. We have the local office, which is our office, of course. The state office, which is a part of the executive branch of the state government. That works through the North Carolina Division of Emergency Management, which is a part of the Department of Public Safety for the state. And of course, everybody has heard of FEMA at one time or another. That's the federal level of emergency management. So those are the three levels that work together in order to protect the citizens from the three levels of government. Now, we wanted to make sure everybody understood that there is a difference between an emergency action plan and an emergency operations plan. There is currently an emergency action plan for the city, for City Hall, and for the B.A. Stuart building. This is done by the employee safety section of the risk management department. It is done in accordance with OSHA regulations. It has nothing to do with FEMA or the Department of Public Safety or any other departments. And we wanted to make sure that distinction was clear to everybody in that the emergency action plan is for tornadoes, fires in this building, hurricanes, or those types of things, and what actions to take immediately for the occupants of the building. It's not a long-term situation, it's for a short-term, and primarily for evacuation or some other means that need to be taken at that time. Now, the emergency operations plan itself, and we'll go through this quickly, has a couple of components to it. The incident management system, which is something that we all have prescribed to. The council has passed a resolution supporting, I don't know whether you recall that or not, the NIMS system, but that's what we respond with. That is the management system that we use here locally in the city and the county. The emergency operation plan doesn't tell people how to do their jobs. It simply tells people what their responsibilities and roles are, and they in turn carry those responsibilities out and return with a standard operating procedure. We have a relationship with FEMA, of course, and with the North Carolina Department of Emergency Management. The emergency operation plan describes organization and responsibilities and some of the other sections of that, including the executive group. You are, as elected officials, members of the executive group. We have also a response tier, which is the one that's most common, that's fire, police, and emergency medical services, as well as a support tier, those services and agencies that support that operation, public health and some of the others. And of course, we have volunteers and other services. Now, within that emergency operation plan, there are several documents. We have 11 municipalities in Forsyth County. They all have subscribed to the emergency management resolution. We have a mutual aid agreement, which contains, pertains rather to all those 11 municipalities. We have a statewide mutual aid agreement. This in turn means that we will assist other counties or municipalities within the state of North Carolina. We've already pre-signed the agreement. So if those resources that we have here are not committed to be used here, we can in turn share those with others, such as we did a couple of months ago, really, with the fire as well as the hurricane that struck down east. Those were mutual aid agreements that we exercised, and we were able to share resources with those who needed them. We do have a NIMS resolution. Now, I mentioned that a minute ago. That's what prescribes how we operate and how we respond in Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. And the plan itself has basically just a few parts. There's a basic plan, annexes, and emergency support functions, and we'll see what those are. I won't go through these, but these are emergency support functions. The emergency operation plan is what we call a multi-hazard plan. With that, or by that, what I mean is that whether we have a hurricane or a tornado or some other situation or some other man-made situation, the shelter, for instance, and mass care is not going to really change. That's a function that's going to be pretty much the same irrespective of what the cause is. So those become emergency support functions. Those are the things that we have to do automatically, well, ordinarily, in respect to almost any disaster, whether it's man-made or natural. I call your attention to ESFF 7, which I think is kind of interesting. We have a whole section now on animal response. That's gotten to be quite a large subject. I thought about that as you were speaking a few minutes ago, and of course you were talking about a different type of animal. We're talking here about domestic animals, but by the same token, we're charged now with providing shelter for animals, which I think is kind of interesting. Again, this is the rest of that list, and again, these are pretty common items, and you will see those being exercised based on whether it is a natural disaster, a man-made, or a man-made disaster. We have support annexes. These are the things that go on irrespective, again, of whatever the cause was. We have to assess damage. You know, in evening news, you see that today's tornado caused $50 million worth of damage. Well, where did that number come from? We have to send out the damage assessment teams and assess the damage both on a local level and a state level in order to come up with that number. So this is the prescription for how we do that. We have logistics management, and we have private sector coordination. We have increasingly a lot of concern from the private sector in respect to getting back into their facilities after something occurs, as well as providing the resources that they have that we might not have ordinarily have access to. So we've got a two-way street here that we want to make sure that we don't overlook. And of course, we have volunteer and donations management and evacuation. Those are the support annexes. Those are the basic things we're going to do irrespective of what the cause is. And we have two special situations here, cyber incidents and terrorism incidents. These are specialized situations that we don't normally put into the public part of the emergency operations plan, but we do have those available, and those affected personnel are aware of them and what they contain. That was a real fast cook's tour of the emergency operations plan. Are there any questions or concerns?
Mr. Salem, I have to say you ran through that really, really fast, but you were clear and concise. And I appreciate that.
We certainly hope so.
Are there any questions for Mr. Salem at this time? Mr. Salem, I guess I would direct one question. I noticed you said in the event of a natural disaster or man-made disaster, we are now charged with housing animals.
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit more about that, or what the process might be.
The process is pretty simple. What we've done now, we've been surveying schools and other locations, and what we're trying to do is make sure we can establish joint sheltering facilities. Now, when I say joint, I'm talking about the animals as well as their owners in the same facility. And a few of them we can, and a few of them we won't be able to do that. But by the same token, we want to put people together with their animals as much as possible. We want them to be able to care for their animals, feed their animal, and do all the things that they need to be able to do. From a practical standpoint, we may not have enough people to do that, and from a standpoint of citizenry, people like to be with their animals. We have to have a couple of, well, I shouldn't say we have to do, but we do have to have a couple of facilities that are capable of doing that, and these are primarily high schools with two gyms, with animals in one hospital, one gymnasium, and people in the other, and they can kind of cross-pollinate when they have an opportunity.
I was curious about that because I know that dogs and cats may not quite get along, or rats and mice may not quite get along. So what the process might be.
And then we've got people who bring snakes and other things too.
Right.
Be prepared for those.
I said rats and mice, but I meant snakes and mice.
Oh,
But
well, yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Byrd.
Every time we hear a report about this, I always ask the city manager and Mr. Settler, are we really ready if we would have something happen real bad in this city?
Yes, ma'am. We are as prepared as we can possibly be, we think. So we'll see how that goes. But of course, there's always something that overwhelms the resource. But we believe as much as possible and as much as practical, we'll be ready for practically anything that occurs here.
Councilmember Larson.
How do we test the plan? How's the plan tested?
we exercise the plan. We know we have a saying in emergency management: if you have a plan and you haven't exercised it, then you don't have a plan.
Exactly.
So we go out and we conduct exercises on a regular basis, both with a tabletop exercise, such as when we bring together a small group of decision makers who are able to make decisions and who are able to talk about various scenarios that we might present to them. And we have functional exercises where we go out into the field and with personnel and equipment and have a real exercise. So we do that on a regular basis, and we do several per year.
Mm-hmm. So any of these just digital testing, or are they all actual field work, or how are the exercises?
Well, it's a combination.
Problem.
We have capability of doing field exercises on we're limited by budget, obviously. Because we've got to backfill sometimes and do some other things to accommodate the needs of the citizens first, and then we can exercise and do other things too. Or we can have a tabletop, which doesn't require a lot of resources, but we can get together with the decision makers and go present them with a scenario and go through that scenario and execute recovery and or responsive recovery, depending on the scenario.
We just approved a $500,000 truck tonight, didn't we? Didn't we send something forward on that out of finance about an emergency response?
So that's a hazmat vehicle.
Hazmat vehicle response. So the equipment needs, you feel, are pretty well met as far as what we actually have to have?
Well, we always want more, but
yeah.
But they're fairly adequate for what we have, and if not, we'll just have to make do. Or if it gets to be a real sticky situation, we can always exercise the mutual aid agreements that I talked about a few minutes ago.
Well, that's true.
If the resource is not needed elsewhere for that time frame, then we can borrow that for a little while.
Well, thank you so much for looking out for something a lot of people don't think about till it happens.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem Byrd.
I was going to say, I always talk about the budget. They work with have you looked at their budget?
No, I have not.
Well, just review that, and then you and I can have a conversation.
I'd love to do that.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Sadler, is there anything further in your presentation you wish? Yes, sir.
Right. That was
Please
the first
proceed.
part, and now we have a second part.
Here, we gave you credit for being clear and concise, and you've got a whole other part.
All right. Well, I'll get that. I'll try to make that clear and concise also.
Yes, sir.
In 2014, a group of about 40 of us went to the Emergency Management Institute in Emmitsburg, Maryland. And our subject matter that we studied was complex coordinated attacks, which is a pretty complex situation. As a follow-up to that, we have a grant opportunity that we'd like to pursue, and kind of relates to what we did there. Our 2014 experience was such that we had some recommendations that we brought back, and some of the things that we did in response to those recommendations we've accomplished, and some of those we have not. And the plan, for instance, relates to that. We're about to update the plan, but we've got some other hurdles to cross first before we do that. I wanted to give a quick overview of what those recommendations were and what we've done so far, what we plan to do, and why we want to pursue the grant.
Please do.
Okay, the first recommendation that they made was to consider an upgrade to the current Emergency Operations Center. We've accomplished that. Well, we're in the process of accomplishing that. Our Emergency Operations Center will be moving to the Forsyth County Public Safety Center at 301 North Church Street. If you're not familiar with that, that's the building that was formerly called the Phillips Building. We expect that about May or June to actually move. We'll have a great deal more space, and we'll have some other things other resources that we don't currently have. Plus, the public safety building is about to be renovated, and we need to get out of there anyways from the standpoint of just this practical standpoint. So I think that'll work out pretty well for us. Capabilities, the recommendation was capabilities and coordination of communication centers need to be strengthened. Coincidental to what our moving there, one of the 4 communication centers in the county will be moving to that same building next door to us. So we think we can co-locate and do some things together from the standpoint of just being from practical application. And our being together will allow us to do some training and to do some other operational items that we can't necessarily, well, I guess we can't necessarily do. Plus, we're lining up some training and exercises that are going to correspond to what we plan to do on the long term. Recommendations involve gaps in training and outreach related to search and rescue. People in Emmitsburg really didn't like our accountability system. I shouldn't say didn't like it, but they thought perhaps we could consider doing it a different way. So we've ordered some specialized software to accomplish that accountability, and we're going to introduce our incident management team into this process. We think those folks have the expertise that will help us, and we'll be able to do a better job in search and rescue. Our incident management team, let me refresh your memory, we came down 2 months ago, I believe it was, and introduced you to the incident management team, and you gave us a resolution of support, and we certainly appreciate that. But we're going to put these folks to work now and work on some of these recommendations in addition to what we also have planned for that. Another recommendation was additional trained personnel and tools for disseminating public information. This is a big one. Social media has changed the way we do public information. Well, that's one of the changes that we've had to make. We are now able to work with our web EOC software, and again, we appreciate your working on that for us and getting it into place. It's going to take us a little while to get it up and running because it's a pretty complex system. But once we do, we will be able to address this recommendation as well as some others. We're training our personnel right now. We've got a series of training classes going on. And of course, we're going to introduce or infuse our incident management team into this work also. And the other recommendations, voluntary agencies and whole community partners need to be integrated into training and exercise and response plans. We're doing that now. We do have an organization which involves local stakeholders, private stakeholders, as well as nonprofit organizations, which is called VOAD, the Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster. We plan to integrate them further. We've had them on the fringe, but we want to put them further into the operations, as well again as our incident management team. So this will help us to better prepare, as we always want to do. Now, a couple other things in respect to the grant itself. The grant opportunity is for municipalities and other jurisdictions, or regional jurisdictions, to apply for complex coordinated attack funding. There are some things that you just saw that we haven't been able to accomplish as yet because we didn't have the funding or some other things. So we thought also between that, upgrading the plan, doing our exercise, and doing all the other things that we need to do, this grant opportunity might be a good opportunity for us to take advantage of. Now, the grant itself, the total appropriation is $35.9 million. Grant recipients can receive up to, and I emphasize up to, $2.5 million each. And there will be 25 to 30 recipients. There are no matching funds required for this grant, which is kind of unusual in today's time, so we certainly want to pursue this. That's another good reason to pursue this grant. And the start time, well, we've got kind of a short window. The application has to be in by the 10th of February, and the start time will be June of 17. So we don't really have a lot of time, but we think this is an opportunity that we can't afford to not take. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I'd say, Mr. Sally, even if there were matching funds required for the grant, I think it makes sense. But the fact that there are no matching funds just sort of sweetens the deal. Councilmember McIntosh.
When was that grant proposal published? When did we know about it?
December, I believe it was.
So that's a really short leash.
Yes, sir.
Who writes ours for us? Who responds to whose responsibility is it to?
Well, we're looking at a couple of different ways of doing it. We haven't really nailed it down yet. We may have to go outside and get a grant writer to help us, or we could do it internally, perhaps. But that's with the timetable, that's going to be difficult, recognizing people have other obligations and responsibilities in addition to this late comer here.
I imagine that grant will be highly sought after.
I'm sure it will be. Yes, sir.
Of it, so we need to put our best foot forward
Yes,
there and do our best job. I know you guys will. Thank you.
And you have the resources you need to go after this grant writer?
We believe so. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Anything further from Mr. Sadler? Members of the committee?
Can I say one more thing?
Mr. Sadler.
In reference to the emergency operations plan, this is it. This is one of the few copies that we actually have in hard copy now, and I don't think you want to carry this home with you. We publish this on CDs, compact disc, and this Thursday in your package you'll be getting a compact disc with the emergency operations plan on it, and you'll have an opportunity to look further.
Great job. We'll review it, and I imagine if we have any questions, we'll be back in contact with you.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you for bringing that forward.
I'll be available.
Thank you, sir.
Committee members, we're asked to approve a resolution which authorizes the city to apply for a 2016 program grant. I think it's the program to prepare communities for complex, coordinated terrorist attacks, Department of Homeland Security grant. That is a mouthful, but we have it before us. What is the pleasure of the committee at this time?
I move for approval.
Second.
Motion and properly seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sadler. Item G2, please.
Item G2, consideration of ordinance approving request for certificate of public convenience and necessity for 2 limousine companies and 1 taxi company in the city of Winston-Salem. Item continued from the December Public Safety Committee meeting.
I'd like to recognize Mr. Turner for background.
Members of the council, members of the committee, the city council every year considers new requests for certificates of convenience and public necessity for taxi cabs and limousines and horse-drawn carriages. This year you have in front of you a package of 16 of those vehicles for consideration as new certificates. Be happy to answer any questions you have regarding this.
Committee members, part of our purview of this committee is to review these certificates. Is there any motion that needs to be put on the floor at this time? Councilmember McIntyre.
I've got a question for staff. Is there a reason why we do this the way we do? When somebody comes to us and asks for the permission to sell alcohol, we do it in a I think, a much more efficient manner. Not that it's not a real time burden on us up here, but I would imagine staff spends a fair amount of time on these requests. Do we have to do it this way? Is it for clarity? Okay. It seems odd to me that it seems like we spend more time on this than we do on alcohol sales, which I think would be a much greater concern. So, okay, then answer that question. And we recently changed the way we deal with requests to continue to use a mobile home. And again, that just has taken cycles off the staff where they can spend time on other things. And it just, if there's a way to do that here, I would encourage that we do it.
Mr. Councilman McIntyre. Larson.
This seems to be an archaic sort of responsibility of city government that goes all the way back to the 19th century. I've seen them in minute books of council meetings going back, into the 1800s. I agree with you. I have no idea why it is that we still review these things the way you do, but if we have to, we will, and do it expeditiously.
Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
I think that would be good, but one thing, when elected officials, this is part of your responsibility. When you see things, you see, we can change. I've said to the city manager, we don't want to keep doing things like we did it. We want to be creative and innovative, so I think that'd be good. So look into it.
So I think the city attorney has said that she will look into it and kind of get back to us and reference it to the city code. But however, if we're not looking to change that code at this time, we have an item before us for action.
Move approval.
Motion?
Second.
And second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you. Item G3, please.
Item G3, consideration of ordinances renewing the certificate of public convenience and necessity of 3 taxi cabs and 3 limousine services in the city of Winston-Salem. Item continued from the December Public Safety Committee.
I didn't say the motion.
Motion for approval.
Second.
So motion is second. Mr. Turner, did I steal your thunder on anything?
I'm sorry, just clarify that the table actually identifies all of the vehicles that will be approved, not the title, but the table.
Thank you. So motion is second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you.
Item G4, ordinances renewing the transferring the certificate of public convenience and necessity of 1 horse-drawn carriage in the city of Winston-Salem.
Mr. Turner.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, as I said at the beginning, the council also approves horse-drawn carriages. And in this case, there is one owner of a horse-drawn carriage company that wishes to transfer their ownership to another owner. They will be operating under the same company name, but it will be different owners. And under your ordinance, a certificate cannot be transferred from owner to owner. They have to be transferred from the council to that new owner. Be happy to answer any questions you have about this.
Oh, I do.
Councilmember Larson.
Why are they reducing? I mean, why? They're authorized 4, and now we're going down to 1. Why would they do that? Is there Is there a fee structure involved in this that they can't just leave it at 4? I mean, or are they going to?
Probably not the concern. There is a requirement that you operate, well, for cabs, you're required to operate 50% of the number you have out there. But I don't know that that's the issue here. I think they just realized that the market that they were operating in only caused for them to need one. We'd be happy to check with them.
And they didn't want the buffer or anything. They were obviously scaling back.
Correct. They didn't ask for the buffer. There is an opportunity for them to come back and ask for additional.
Another one.
So
yeah.
I imagine they were looking at that possibility if the market grew.
Is there a motion?
Motion for approval?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. That concludes our last item on the general agenda. I'd recognize Councilman Larson for some additional comments.
Yes, I have an item that I'd like staff to explore to some degree. This probably involves the city attorney's office as well as perhaps planning, and that involves recent legislation out of Raleigh authorizing the creation of needle exchange centers in municipalities. They seem to have defined a method of licensing or permitting these centers. There's requirements about, the filing and the requirements of regular reporting and whatever. What seems to be missing, however, is any guidance about placement and the proximity of these operations to other operations. And issues equivalent to, say, ABC stores or other things. Is this a function that would fall within the jurisdiction of this council to regulate where these needle exchange programs are placed within our city? What kind of control do we have over any of their operational hours? Anything about zoning or function within our current UDO? So if we could look at that and come back with any kind of recommendations by staff or the attorney about examining the long-term presence of that kind of operation within our general functioning, I would appreciate it.
Thank you. Any questions for Councilman Larson on that, staff? And have you finished your comments, Mr. Larson?
Thank you very much.
Is there anything further for the good of the order? Chief Roundtree is recognized.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Chairman Taylor and members of the Public Safety Committee. During the December meeting, we were encouraged to spotlight good work and things that are being done in the police department. So I would just like to take 1 minute to speak about a recent award. The police department, we were selected as one of 12 agencies in the United States to be featured on the Department of Justice website during the 3rd annual Community Policing in Action photo contest. This is with the photograph that you see here. It is one of the winning photographs that was selected as one of the 12 agencies across the United States. This particular one features Officer R.D. White. He's assisting an elderly citizen here in Winston-Salem who asked the officer to hold her hand as he walked her to the police car. He was actually going to give her a ride home. Again, this photograph will be featured on the United States Department of Justice website, their Facebook, and also their Twitter. So I just wanted to spotlight that today. We submitted many of our great photographs that spotlight the police department's community policing throughout the city, but this particular one was one that was chosen to be featured by the United States. Any questions?
Congratulations.
Councilman Larson.
You have a police promotion ceremony coming up this
Yes,
week.
we do. We
Is that
have
right?
a upcoming police promotional ceremony that will be this coming Thursday at 4 p.m. It'll be at the BB&T Legends Room.
Great.
We'll be promoting 14 employees, sworn and non-sworn.
Great.
And Chief, we thank you for bringing both of those to our attention. As always, we thank you and the good men and women of the police department for what you do for our city. I think the picture speaks volumes and doesn't need any further commentary, but we thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Is there anything further for the good of the order? Seeing nothing further, we'll hereby consider this meeting to be adjourned. Thank you.